Order, order. Jacob Collier to move the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I beg to move that this House has considered e-petition 759783 relating to a public register of animal abusers and automatic ownership bans. And it's a privilege to lead this debate on behalf of the Petitions Committee. And the author of the petition, B. Alton, who joins us in the public gallery, doesn't work day to day in the protection of animals, but rather provides a cleaning service for those in need who are struggling to keep their homes in order. She documents this on her Instagram channel, Clean with B, which has more than 2.2 million followers, which is probably just about the same as the minister, I'm sure.
He's famed now.
B was kind enough to meet me ahead of today's debate online, which is probably lucky that she didn't meet me in my office, as there would have been quite a bit of cleaning to do on my desk. But what was clear in meeting B was her passion and sense of duty to those that are less fortunate than herself. And through deep cleaning homes, B has found out the awful situations that some animals find themselves in, vulnerable to serious neglect and abuse. And it's important here to note the distinction between abuse and neglect. Abuse is distinguished with intent. And there are some people who unintentionally neglect their animals due to circumstances beyond their control, which could be financial difficulty or mental distress. Those people are not the concern of this petition, which is focused on intentional abuse. The abuse we're discussing today isn't the professional cruelty of organised crime running illegal dog fights or breeding operations, which are well known to the police, or abusive commercial practices in farms. It is more that hidden cruelty inflicted in domestic settings up and down the country. And B emphasised to me that her focus is on abuse committed in the domestic setting rather than commercial. And unfortunately, the most recent statistics from the RSPCA, who are the main investigative body for offences under the current legislation, confirm that B's experiences reflect the situation across our society. In 2022, 400 pet owners were convicted on evidence gathered by the RSPCA in their investigations, and I would like to put on record my thanks to the RSPCA, their tireless work in this space right across our country. Yeah. The abuse of animals offends our deepest instincts of fairness and kindness. These animals are utterly blameless and yet uniquely vulnerable. The more animals that be found in this predicament, the stronger her sense of conviction was that the current system for preventing animal abuse was inadequate. And one of B's most pressing concerns was her feeling that the system failed to prevent animal abuse from occurring in the first place. In short, B's petition requests that those convicted of animal abuse be prohibited from owning animals again, and that their conviction be listed on a national register that can be accessed by breeders, charities, vets, local authorities, and other appropriate organisations. In response to this petition, the government has rejected those demands on the grounds that the current provisions are sufficient, and I'll return to those points later in my remarks. I will.
Thank my friend for giving way. I'd like to thank the petitioners for bringing this really important issue to the House, and I'm very sympathetic to it. But animal abuse comes in many forms. Does my honourable friend agree that we should also be thinking about the abuse that owners who are irresponsible with their pets, or what sanctions they should face? Recently in my constituency of Stevenage, we had a horrific case of an XL bully attacking a man who ended up needing hospital treatment. Does my honourable friend agree that people who cannot responsibly handle their animals are also committing a form of abuse and should be treated accordingly?
Yes, I think that is separate to this issue, but I know that the legislation around XL bullies already exists, so we need to see that properly enforced. The conviction most used in animal abuse is made under the 2006 Animal Welfare Act, with sexual abuse now covered by the recent Crime and Policing Act. If convicted under the Animal Welfare Act, an individual can be subject to up to 5 years in prison, and they can also be subject to a disqualification order issued by the court, which can prevent them from owning animals for the rest of their lives. However, the specific terms of the order are decided by the court. The experts who I have spoken to in preparation for this debate, and thank you to Claire McParland, Dr. David Martin and Mark Randall, agree that the current framework for legislation is a significant improvement on previous legislation that we've seen, under which animal cruelty was largely prosecuted as criminal damage, and sentences were often a little lenient for organised crime. The government note in their response that all offences under the Animal Welfare Act are stored on the Police National Database, and this data can be shared with the appropriate authorities and members of the public in specific circumstances. However, the records of convictions under the earlier legislation are less comprehensive. Under the current system, an inevitable challenge of report is the reporting of suspected offences. Most reports of animal abuse come from the public, which makes enforcement more reactive than preventative. One risk of a national register is that it could make people less likely to report because they assume that authorities already have the matter in hand. Once the RSPCA begin to investigate a report, they can request information from the police regarding any previous convictions, but this process can be slow and there's no guarantee that police will release the information. So a dedicated national register would, of course, make this easier. Another route through which animal abuse can be investigated is when police forces discover abuse while investigating other reports. Dr. David Martin, who has decades of experience as an expert witness in animal abuse cases, stressed to me that collaboration between the police and RSPCA is very effective in England, Scotland and Wales, and local teams know who to call when they have a query or when they come across instances of animal abuse in their day-to-day activities. On the other hand, Mark Randall, who's a former police officer who spent decades campaigning for improvements to the police response to animal abuse, said that actually identifying animal abuse is not standardised across police forces, and the understanding of how animal abuse fits into broader safeguarding varies greatly between police forces across this country. So we must recognise that considering standardising training so that it isn't a postcode lottery is something that we should consider. In spite of these circumstances, the RSPCA successfully prosecutes hundreds of cases each year. And as noted earlier, while disqualification orders are at the discretion of the court, this petition requests bans to be automatic upon conviction. This may work to reduce instances of animal abuse, especially if coupled with a national register that was available to vets and rehoming charities. However, in a liberal democracy like our own, we evaluate proposals for punishments of crimes not simply based on how effectively it prevents reoccurrence, but we must also consider whether the punishment is proportionate. And in the case of automatic lifetime bans, this is unclear. An automatic ban pays no regard to whether the victim is entirely responsible for their crime. For example, are they in a coercive or controlling relationship? Or are they themselves victims of abuse, which may drive them to inflict harm on animals? In such cases, it's harder to establish with certainty that they are responsible for the crime, and so an automatic ban may be disproportionate.
Will you give way on that point?
I will.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Across Cornwall, there are dozens of cases of animal abuse every year. In fact, animal abuse is a blight on our duchy. So I welcome the principle of the abuser register. But does he agree with me that not only should perpetrators be added to the register, but the threat of custodial sentences should be strong enough to ensure that they know that they will be punished for their crimes?
Yes, I do agree that the threat of prosecution, we've seen that strengthened through the 2006 Act, and that has actually aided with preventing abuse. So I think that is something, as the government looks to review the Animal Welfare Act, that is something that they should take into consideration. And for a ban to last a lifetime, it ignores the possibility that offenders may change their ways. And in this country, we believe that those who break the laws can be rehabilitated into a law-abiding society. Because imagine a case in which a child or young adult commits abuse against an animal. What if they are locking that animal in a cupboard to protect it from their own violent parent? A lifetime ban would mean that they'd be unable to have such a pet in their retirement. And in that case, it does feel disproportionate. And once you consider that argument from that perspective, the discretionary nature of disqualification orders appears to be a strength. Judges have the freedom to consider the offender's circumstances, which may have motivated the crime. Nonetheless, it may be the case that disqualification orders need to be issued more regularly to prevent reoccurrence, and guidelines could be changed to perhaps make them time-limited orders when a certain level or kind of abuse has been committed. As for the National Register, the RSPCA have repeatedly stated that it is unreasonably difficult for them to access the history of an alleged offender. And how this register works in practice must be considered carefully. B herself wants the register accessible to appropriate organisations, but not the general public. And this would avoid giving rise to animal abuse vigilantism, the like that we've seen spreading on social media in other cases. Alongside the question of access, there is also the question of what information should be contained. A public register may not be as effective if it is just simply a snapshot of past offending. As noted earlier, convictions under the Animal Welfare Act are only part of the picture, and a register of convictions is not as detailed as the archive of RSPCA intelligence. Information must be comprehensive and up to date if it is to be truly effective to relevant agencies. A more useful alternative, therefore, might be a disclosure scheme akin to Clare's Law, which enables police to disclose information about an individual's history of violence or abuse where there is a credible risk to their partner. This is on a statutory footing, requiring police forces to give reasons if they do not wish to make a disclosure. The family of Holly Bramley have been campaigning for an animal abuse register and police disclosure scheme since her tragic murder in 2023. Holly's killer was a prolific abuser and killer of animals. He used that threat of animal abuse to control Holly. The link between animal abuse and domestic violence is something that we cannot ignore and is key to this debate, and we do owe it to Holly to take action.
My honourable friend makes a valid link between the abuse of animals and the abuse of human beings, and I'd like to thank the petitioner B for bringing this today because it opens a spotlight on both forms of abuse. The RSPCA have reported that 71% of domestic violence victims suffer from death threats to their pets too. Doesn't this prove that we need to be more sophisticated in the way we record crimes of animal abuse so that it captures the wider sense that these people are a threat not just to animals, but to their wives, their partners and everyone else?
Yes, I absolutely agree with him, and I was shocked in some of the evidence that I heard in preparing for this debate about that link between domestic violence and animal abuse, and that's something that as the government considers the next steps, that really needs to be key to their thinking around this. I understand that the RSPCA are in discussions with the Home Office and DEFRA regarding a version of Clare's Law for animal abuse, and I'd welcome an update from the Minister in winding up on these discussions. In closing, in just 3 months, B's signatures have gone over 238,000 signatures, illustrating the depth and feeling across our country about abuse against animals. This feeling, together with the expert opinion of organisations like the RSPCA, indicates that the current provisions against animal abuse are not adequate enough. An automatic life ban for convicted abusers appears to be a disproportionate response, though questions remain of whether disqualification orders are being used as frequently as they should. A public register of convictions is similarly unsuitable. However, a version of Clare's Law for animal abuse may strike the right balance, allowing appropriate agencies up-to-date access and intelligence when they need it to intervene before abuse is committed. I would like to thank B for creating this petition and allowing this necessary debate. And of course, my office is a prime candidate if she wants to conduct another spring clean. Thank you.
Robert Jenrick.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. Can I begin by thanking B. Elton and all of the nearly 250,000 petitioners who brought this to the attention of the House of Commons today. We are a nation of animal lovers. It is an essential part of the British psyche. We were the first country in the world to have an animal cruelty charity. later royalised as the RSPCA. In fact, it was created 60 years before a similar charity with respect to children, which perhaps says something about the unique attachment that people have on these islands to our animals. We were the first state to create laws against animal cruelty in 1822, again, before some very prescient ones with respect to humans. And animal charities receive millions of pounds more every year than do charities for children. All of this tells you that the British love their animals, and I certainly do. So I'm here today on behalf of myself and my constituents in Newark and Nottinghamshire to strongly back the petition and all that Bea and her fellow campaigners have achieved so far. It cannot be right that in a country like ours, with this deep sentimental attachment to our animals, that we allow people who have been known to abuse animals to take charge of them again in the future. It should be the law of the land that if you have been convicted of knowingly abusing an animal, that you are never in charge of one again in the future. And so I strongly support the purpose of the petition today. And similarly, it is right that a register is created, which is either in the public domain or at a bare minimum is available to those who breed, who sell animals, who are the ones who are the ultimate guardians of animals and then entrust them to others so that they can make sensible choices and not give animals into the care of those who are known to have abused them. It is surprising that a register like this does not exist in our country already, and it should do. And so if this petition is a spur to the government to establish such a register, then Bea and 250,000 people, the length and breadth of the country who signed it, will have done a very good deed. Because it must be the case that we take greater care in the future over our pets and animals than we have in the future. It's obviously good for animals, but it's also good for us as human beings as well, because the tenderness that we show to animals in this country is something that we should celebrate, something I think we take pride in when we visit other parts of the world which do not have the tradition that we have in our own country, and which in a sense is what I think Peter Singer described as part of the ever-expanding circle of empathy, where if you treat animals in a way like this, perhaps it will encourage us to treat human beings in a similar fashion as well in the future. So let me finish with that and saying thank you to Bea and to all of the petitioners, and encourage the government to take up these recommendations to create the mandatory ban, to create the register that is available for all those who pass animals into the custody of our fellow citizens, to ensure that we protect animals and that we increase and improve the world-class laws that we have in this country with respect to animal cruelty. Thank you.
The picture.
Thank you, Dr. Merson. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I congratulate the honourable member on securing this debate on behalf of the Petitions Committee. I thank all my residents. In fact, I thank everybody who has signed the e-petition. And of course, today in the chamber, I thank Bea for bringing this to light. This matters deeply to people across the country, and it matters to people in Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme. People expect those who cause suffering to an animal to face serious consequences. More than that, they expect the law to prevent another animal ever being put at risk again. At home, our dog Foggy is a treasured member of our family, and I know that's how most people feel about their pets. They rely on us, they trust us, and they absolutely deserve to be safe in our care. Now, I recently received a letter from a 13-year-old constituent specifically about today. They contacted me because they were worried that someone convicted of animal abuse could later go on to have another animal. They could not understand why someone who had already shown cruelty towards an animal should be given another opportunity to cause harm. It was a powerful letter, and not just because it came from a young person, although that certainly made it a lot more striking, but because it put the matter so absolutely plainly. Why should we wait until another animal has suffered before we act? There are important powers already available to the courts. We've heard under the Animal Welfare Act 2006, someone convicted of an offence can be disqualified from owning animals, keeping them, taking part in their care, influencing how they are kept, dealing in them or transporting them. Those powers absolutely matter. The increase in maximum sentences for the most serious animal cruelty offences was also an important step forward. But the petition raises a fair question. Is the current system clear enough, consistent enough and practical enough to stop people who have been banned from simply going elsewhere and acquiring another animal? A conviction may be recorded and a disqualification order may be made. But what happens when someone approaches a rescue centre, a breeder or another organisation to take on an animal? How does that organisation know whether the person standing in front of them has a history of serious cruelty or has been banned by a court from keeping animals? At present, that answer seems far too uncertain.
Will you give way on that point?
I will give way on that point.
I thank him for giving way on that specific point. And while he's talking about those kind of challenges, I wonder if he'd agree with me that we need to close the loophole where banned owners can give their pets or their farm animals to their wives or their husbands to own, and they can still live with them. Surely, does he agree with me that loophole needs to be closed?
Absolutely. There's no place for loopholes like that in our law, in our country, in a place where we love our animals so much. The government has referred to the Police National Computer and to existing arrangements for information sharing. Now, I recognise that there are important safeguards around personal information and data protection that we must be aware of. But a record held somewhere in a system is not the same as a practical safeguarding tool that can stop a banned person from acquiring another animal. That is the point behind this petition, and it is a point we should take very, very seriously. This Labour government was elected on a commitment to strengthen animal welfare, including action on puppy farming and smuggling, snare traps, trail hunting and hunting trophies. We should now look carefully at whether the protection offered to animals after a cruelty conviction is strong enough in practice. I believe there's a serious case here for a properly governed national safeguarding scheme for those convicted of the most serious animal cruelty offences and subject to ownership bans. That would not need to be a public database. It should not be about naming and shaming people or allowing uncontrolled access to sensitive information. It should be a proportionate and safeguarding measure with clear rules on who can make a check, when they can do so, and what information they can receive. It can be managed, is what I'm saying. Animal rescue and rehoming organisations, veterinary professionals, local authorities, licensing bodies and responsible breeders should be able to establish whether someone is prohibited from keeping an animal before an animal is placed in someone else's care. We rightly recognise that information sometimes needs to be shared to protect children, vulnerable adults and the wider public. I believe we should be willing to consider a careful and proportionate approach that protects animals from people with a proven record of cruelty or neglect. The petition calls for automatic life bans following convictions for animal abuse or neglect, and I understand why that has attracted such strong support. For the gravest cases, particularly those involving deliberate, sustained or repeated cruelty, the protection of future animals must be at the heart of the court's decision. There should be a strong presumption that someone who has shown such serious cruelty should not be entrusted with the care of another animal again. Courts must retain the ability to consider the individual circumstances of a case, but where a serious offender receives only a short ban or no ban at all, there should be clear reasons for that decision. This is not simply about punishment, it's about prevention. Animal cruelty can also be part of a wider pattern of harm. We've heard that today. It can sit alongside coercive control, domestic abuse and violence within a household. That makes early identification and effective safeguarding even more important. So I ask the Minister to look carefully at what more can be done. Will the government consider consulting on a national animal welfare safeguarding disclosure scheme so that responsible organisations can check whether a prospective owner has been convicted of a serious cruelty or banned from keeping animals previously? Will the government consider whether the law should create a stronger expectation of lengthy and, where appropriate, lifetime ownership bans in serious and repeated cases? And will the government publish clearer information on the number of disqualification orders made, how long they last, and how often they are breached, and what action is taken when they are ignored? My 13-year-old constituent was not asking for anything unreasonable. They were asking for a system that works before another animal is intentionally harmed. That is a basic test of whether our animal welfare laws are doing what the public expect them to do. So for my 13-year-old constituent, for B, for all of those who have signed the petition, and every wonderful, beautiful animal out there that we love, I believe we should always try and meet that test.
Well done. Yeah, Campbell.
You, Dr. Morrison, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairship today. I thank the Honourable Member from Burton and Uttoxeter for his opening speech, particularly the link between domestic violence and animal abuse. And I thank my constituents of Broxtowe for signing this petition and the petitioner for bringing this petition forward. Animal abuse is a particular type of cruelty, and perpetrators should be made accountable for this, but far too often that is not the case. I was encouraged by the government's animal welfare strategy, which sets out a clear vision for improving animal welfare standards across the country. This government is delivering the most comprehensive animal welfare programme in a generation. But this is our opportunity to go further. The government could consider a register of animal abusers with an automatic ban on ownership for all those convicted of animal abuse to tackle the increased number of cases and reported cases that we are seeing today. In 2024, the RSPCA reported a heartbreaking increase in cases of animal and pet abuse on their emergency line, taking more than one call every 16 seconds. I therefore can only support this petition today. Chair, even though courts can disqualify individuals from ownership once convicted of animal abuse, there is no central register that charities, vets or businesses can check if someone is banned from keeping animals before selling or rehoming them, or even employing someone to take care of animals. The government has said that a public register would not be appropriate because it would run the risk of vigilantism towards a person on the register. However, a closed register that is only accessible by, for example, pets, vets, breeders and charities could remedy this problem. A closed register alongside a mandatory ban would serve as a deterrent to animal abusers, especially repeat offenders. Statistics show that abuse of pets is on the rise, and I've also been made aware of an increase of animal abuse content being shared online. I can only support this petition, but let me end by saying that the vast majority of pets are not simply animals to us, they are members of our family, and we recognise that animal cruelty is the exception, despite it being on the rise. Many pets across the country can safely rely on their owners for consistent care, safety and kindness. But all animals deserve the best lives possible, and I ask the government to build on the foundations that they've already set out in the animal welfare strategy.
Josh Newbury.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. It's a pleasure, I think, for the first time to speak with you in the chair. I'd like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Burton and Uttoxeter, for introducing today's debate so thoughtfully, as he always does as a member of the Petitions Committee. And I'd also like to thank the 386 animal lovers in my Cannock Chase constituency who added their names to this petition. I appreciate now it isn't often the case that we debate petitions started by social media influencers, but because of the determination of B. Elton, also known as Clean with B, to her millions of followers, myself included, we are able to debate this important issue today. If honourable members haven't watched B's videos yet, then I will forgive them for being on their phones throughout my speech. B offers free home cleanings to people in deep crisis or with severe hoarding tendencies. And sadly, she often comes across animals that have been neglected and had to live in awful conditions. I'm very glad that B has used her experiences and her platform to bring this issue to Parliament. And I hope that we can focus on the art of the possible, because preventing needless suffering of animals is something that I know unites all of us across the political spectrum. Last autumn, I went on a ride-along with Sophie, an RSPCA inspector, to see what a day looks like for them. My constituency is full of pet owners, and who can blame them? If you live somewhere as beautiful as Cannock Chase, why wouldn't you get a dog as motivation to explore our stunning scenery together? I admit, though, that I don't have a pet myself, not because I don't love animals, but because I know that I couldn't give one the time and attention it deserves. I often joke, I've got 2 young kids, and that is enough for now. To me, this debate comes down to the fundamental fact that owning a pet is not a right. It's a privilege and a responsibility. The time I spent with Sophie only reinforced that. Like many people, I'd assumed that most of the RSPCA's work involves rescuing animals from awful situations. Of course, they do that in tandem with the police, but what surprised me was how much of their time is actually spent trying to stop animals reaching that point in the first place. Inspectors spend hours following up owners after advising them that a pet needs veterinary treatment, for example. They work closely with local vets to check whether animals have actually received the care that they need. Most owners do the right thing, but when somebody repeatedly ignores that advice and an animal continues to suffer because treatment has been withheld, concerns rightly begin to escalate. One thing that really stayed with me from that day was that many of those cases of animal abuse reveal something far deeper. Inspectors told me that they often encounter people whose lives have unraveled. That might be because of a relationship breakdown, domestic abuse, as we've heard, physical illness, or mental ill health. None of that excuses neglect, but it does remind us that animal welfare is often connected to wider challenges in somebody's life. We also know, as we've heard, that the relationship can work the other way. Campaigns like Ruby's Law have highlighted that perpetrators of domestic abuse may threaten or harm family pets as a means of coercion and control, knowing exactly how much fear and distress that causes. 9 in 10 people experiencing domestic abuse in England and Wales reported that animals were also abused by the perpetrators. So protecting animals isn't separate from protecting people. Sometimes it is part of the very same task. That's why partnership between organisations is so important. The RSPCA, as we know, does not have the power to seize animals itself. It relies on the police following its investigations, and inspectors can't force entry into a property if access is refused. And that experience left me with one clear thought. Our system does a reasonable job of responding once abuse has happened. I'm not convinced it does enough to stop the next animal becoming a victim. As colleagues have highlighted, the government's response to this petition says that convictions for animal cruelty are already recorded on the police national computer and that courts have the power to disqualify offenders from keeping animals. That's absolutely true. But rescue centres, breeders and pet shops can't routinely check those records. So somebody who has already been banned from keeping animals can walk into one of those organisations, appear perfectly respectable and walk out with another pet simply because the people rehoming that animal have no way of checking whether they're disqualified. That doesn't mean that the law has comprehensively failed. It means there's a gap in the system. Yes, breaching a disqualification order is an offence, but somebody has to discover that breach first. Given the demands on our police and local authorities, we shouldn't be relying on chance or hoping that somebody spots what's happened after another animal is already suffering. Surely it's better to stop that animal being placed there in the first place. I understand the government's concerns about privacy when it comes to a public register, but there could be a sensible middle ground, as colleagues have already outlined. A register available to verified rescue organisations, breeders and licensed pet sellers would allow them to check whether somebody is currently subject to a disqualification order before an animal is handed over. Not to name and shame, not to publish personal information, just to answer one simple question. Can this person legally keep and care for an animal? The government is also right. Yes, of course.
I'm incredibly grateful to him for giving way. He's making such a powerful speech, and I didn't want to interrupt. But I was speaking with volunteers at the East Ardsley RSPCA in my constituency just the other week, and they tell me they have to endure abuse from people who accuse them of not taking care of animals because they've reported cruelty to them, but they don't necessarily have the powers to act. If they had access to such a database, if other organisations had access to such a database, that would solve that problem, wouldn't it? And would he just take the opportunity to commend the RSPCA in my constituency too for all of their outstanding work?
Yes, of course, Mr. Morrison. I will never miss an opportunity to thank the RSPCA, including in Leeds South West and Morley, East Ardsley Centre. He's absolutely right that RSPCA staff and volunteers can often face abuse themselves because many people are rightly so passionate about protecting animals. But it's important that we remember that their powers are far more limited than perhaps many of us realise, and that actually they are as determined as anybody to do the right thing by animals, and we need to make sure that they are given as many powers as appropriate, but that we also support them in doing the important work that they do and make sure that the enemy is the people that do this, not the people who are trying to get away with it. So the government is also right that judges should retain discretion over the terms of disqualification orders. Every case is different and rehabilitation should always remain possible where appropriate. But I believe that once someone has been convicted of egregious animal abuse, a ban should be automatic and have practical effect. This petition is not asking us to reinvent the wheel. The convictions already exist. The courts already have the powers. All we're really asking is whether we can close one obvious gap in the system so that trusted organisations have the information they need to stop known offenders acquiring another vulnerable animal. So I would say to the Minister that if we can prevent even a handful of animals from suffering because of that change, I think it would be a step well worth taking. Thank you.
Liberal Democrat spokesman Dan Chambers.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. It's an honour to serve under your chairship. I want to thank my friend from Utoxeter for bringing forward this hugely important debate today, and to the petitioners and B. Elton for getting so many signatures so we're discussing this issue, and also to Holly's family, who are turning an absolute tragedy into something that could have a positive legacy. I think that's a very courageous thing to do. My many years of working in veterinary practice, one observation has always stuck with me, and that is that sort of people who show kindness, well, actually how people treat animals is often a reflection on how they treat those people who are closest to them. And people who treat animals with nothing but unfailing kindness tend to be some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And yet, people who deliberately inflict suffering on a defenseless animal, it's often a warning sign that they are going to, that violence is probably going to extend beyond the animal and into the home, because you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I will happily give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate him being a fantastic animal champion, and the work that he's done on puppy smuggling is absolutely fantastic. But I just wondered if he'd agree with me that there should be obviously stronger sentencing, but to those with a proven track record of serious animal abuse and harm, they should face complete ownership bans. Would he agree with me?
I totally agree with my honourable friend, because we should be clear, as other members have pointed out, there's a very big difference between someone who causes suffering to an animal through a variety of reasons, like having mental health issues, through neglect, through sometimes ignorance, and someone who deliberately causes harm to an animal because they have some kind of sadistic personality or they want to feel powerful. The motivation behind causing the suffering is very, very important in this debate. And causing deliberate suffering is an indicator of someone who may well go and cause harm to other people around them as well. And as a vet, it's always very unsettling if you're treating a dog, for example, with a broken rib, which could have occurred by a kick, and the owner's telling you that it fell down the stairs. I mean, that is a very unusual thing for a dog to do, and it'd be very unusual to break a rib as a result of that incident. And beyond treating, my concern in those situations, beyond treating the immediate animal in front of you, does extend to the people who are living in the closest proximity to the person who's brought in that dog. And we know that sometimes people will even coerce a partner to stay with them instead of leaving by threatening to harm their pet. And on that note, I just want to pay tribute to organisations like Trinity in Winchester, which has a refuge for people fleeing domestic abuse that allow people to take their pets with them, because that is one barrier to people escaping that situation. And I know Cats Protection and Dogs Trust do have a very similar scheme, and it's hugely important. As vets, we're trained to recognise the early signs of disease so you can treat it before it becomes irreversible. And yet, I believe we should take the same approach to violence. Animal abuse is not always an isolated act of cruelty. Sometimes it's the first symptom of something much more dangerous. And that's why I also take every opportunity to discuss the important work of the Links Group. They highlight the evidence linking animal abuse with domestic abuse and other forms of violence. Today, I'm going to ask the Minister to consider 3 measures. And the first one is, when someone has been convicted of abusing an animal, that information should be capable of being disclosed under the Domestic Violence Disclosure Scheme, commonly known as Clare's Law, where it is relevant to protecting someone at risk. If animal abuse predicts domestic violence, that information must be available to all those who need it. And the issue we have at the moment is often abuse of an animal is prosecuted under animal welfare laws, and then it doesn't show up when people are looking for historical allegations or convictions of domestic violence. Secondly, anyone convicted of sexually abusing an animal should be automatically placed on the sex offenders register. At present, such convictions under animal welfare legislation carry no referral to public protection mechanisms. So that means if someone has sexually abused an animal, they're also prosecuted under animal welfare laws, and there's no way of tracking that they have a more high likelihood of committing sexual violence against other people as well. So this cannot be right, and it's an anomaly that this House should close. And thirdly, anyone convicted of abusing an animal should be, or deliberately abusing an animal, should be prohibited from owning animals in the future. The court should have the powers to impose long-term, or where appropriate, lifetime disqualification orders. So Holly's killer had abused animals since the age of 8, and he had admitted it, and the RSPCA knew about this, but the legal and justice systems that are in place did not allow anyone to join those dots, and we cannot allow that to happen again. And so by clamping down really hard on deliberate animal abuse, we can protect women and spouses and children and animals from future harm. Thank you.
Cabinet Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Murison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. This has been an important debate, and I thank Bea for bringing this issue forwards through the petition. Among the many contributions we've had, the member for Burton and Uttoxeter set out clearly the background to the petition and the challenges with identifying and enforcing convictions of animal abuse. The member for Newark highlighted the importance and care that we all feel for our pets and animals. And the member for Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme raised the need to think about prevention alongside punishment. All of us are united in our shared belief that any case of animal cruelty is completely unacceptable. As an animal lover, I am deeply committed to doing what I can in this House to raise awareness, legislate and support efforts to prevent animal cruelty. I'm therefore proud to be part of a Conservative Party that has a strong record on animal welfare from our time in government, where we passed legislation including the Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Act 2024, which bans the export of live animals for slaughter, through to the Animal Welfare Sentencing Act 2021, which increased the maximum prison sentence for animal cruelty from 6 months to 5 years. In addition, the last government introduced the Animal Welfare Sentience Act 2022, the Animals Penalty Notices Act 2022, and the Glue Traps Offences Act 2022. Dr. Murison, allow me to mention one more piece of legislation, if I may, passed since the election in July 2024 by a Conservative MP, myself. The Dogs Protection of Livestock Amendment Act 2025 shows our ongoing commitment to animal welfare. I was pleased to bring forward this legislation to update laws surrounding livestock worrying, to increase the fine where dogs attack livestock, and to give the police more powers to investigate instances of livestock worrying. And I'm grateful to members from across this House who supported the passage of that bill. I won't.
And I apologise to the mover of the debate for not being at the outset, as I've already apologised to you, Mr. Chairman. I rise simply to highlight the association between animal cruelty and domestic abuse highlighted earlier. Annette Bramley is my constituent, and her daughter Holly is the woman who was killed by a wicked husband, now enduring life imprisonment, although of course in a better age he would have been executed. That connection is proven. Huge numbers. I've got the facts and figures, and I'm happy to give them both to the Minister and yourself, but I won't bore the meeting with them now. Illustrate that a huge proportion of those who are cruel to people have also been cruel to animals. There is an association which would allow us to deal with risk more effectively. I have been working with the government on this, and I commend them for that work, but I wonder if the Minister can address it when he sums up, because it is important that we know where the government are on that work, whether it can be done with an existing legislation, whether it will require further secondary or primary legislation. Thank you.
I thank my right honourable friend for intervening, speaking so eloquently as he always does, and I will come on to the case of his constituent and pay tribute to the work that his mother is doing in due course. Because of the widespread commitment and support to reducing animal cruelty, the UK has some of the highest animal welfare standards in the world, and it's right for us to cement our status as a global leader by continuing to raise the bar. Turning to the petition that we're debating today, it does not surprise me that it has received over 230,000 signatures, because I know it is an issue which many of our constituents rightly feel very strongly about. In my constituency of Chester South and Eddisbury, 328 people have added their names to this petition. Chair, existing provisions ensure that all prosecutions for animal cruelty offences under the Animal Welfare Act 2006 are stored on the Police National Computer. This information can be shared with appropriate organisations at the police's discretion. However, there are some points that I would welcome the Minister's thoughts on. Can I ask him what assessment has he made of this arrangement with regard to the Animal Welfare Act 2006? For example, is there consistency in decisions as to when data is shared? How regularly is data being shared and where is it being shared? And importantly, is it helping to prevent incidents of abuse? Chair, I want to now turn to the connection between animal abuse and domestic violence, because sadly there is a link, and perpetrators of animal abuse too often commit abuse to people as well. This has been highlighted by cases such as the tragic murder, as we have heard, of Holly Bramley. Not only has this boosted awareness, but it has increased demand for a public register. I commend her mother, Annette, for turning an unimaginably difficult situation into a campaign that has honoured her daughter's legacy and is focused on ensuring the link between animal and domestic violence is properly recorded. The RSPCA has highlighted that 2.3 million adults experienced domestic abuse in 2024, and 71% of victims reported a threat to their pets. Figures such as this should give us serious cause for concern, and I would like to ask the Minister today what steps he is taking to work with ministerial colleagues in the Home Office to ensure there is a cohesive approach to tackling this link between animal and domestic abuse. I want to recognise the important work that's being done by the veterinary profession to highlight this link. And on this point, can I draw attention to my register of interests as someone who is married to a veterinary surgeon and as an owner of a veterinary business? Dr. Murison, the work of the Links Group, which is chaired by Dr. Paula Boyton, former veterinary director of the Dogs Trust, is helping to inform vets on the front line who may be exposed to cases that need action. I hope the Minister will join me in acknowledging the importance of this work and outline if the government is engaging with the veterinary profession, including the Links Group, the British Veterinary Association, and other stakeholders to support this work. Pets are too often used as a means of coercion and control against those experiencing domestic abuse. That's why it is so important that anyone suffering at the hands of an abuser knows that support is available. Earlier this month, I attended the Cats Protection Drop-In in Parliament, where, among other things, they were highlighting the work of charities that provide temporary foster care for pets when someone is fleeing domestic abuse. That support can make the difference between someone remaining in an abusive relationship for fear of leaving a beloved pet behind and having the confidence to escape to safety. Does the Minister agree that these are exactly the kinds of initiatives we should be championing to raise awareness of this issue? And will he outline what steps the government are taking to improve public awareness of the links between animal abuse and domestic abuse, including the use of threats or harm to pets as a form of coercive and controlling behaviour? I'm sure all members will encourage anyone experiencing domestic abuse or worried about animal abuse to come forward and seek help. Police forces, including Cheshire Constabulary in my own area, have safe ways for people to report abuse. And I want anyone listening to this debate to know that they do not have to face it alone. Help is available, and I would urge you to reach out. If we raise awareness of the link between animal and domestic abuse and improve the sharing and recording of information, I believe we can identify abuse earlier, protect more victims, and prevent further harm. Ultimately, this is what every one of us in this House wants to achieve. While the government has said in its written response to this petition that it will not introduce a public register, given the number of U-turns that have been made thus far, I'm not certain if that position can be relied upon. What, however, is certain is that anyone who is abusing animals or using the threat of animal abuse for manipulation must be prosecuted and face the consequences for their despicable actions. Thank you.
Minister.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Dr. Mirison, and may I congratulate the member for Burton and Uttoxeter for opening this debate on behalf of the Petitions Committee, and I thank him for the thoughtful way in which he has set out the issues raised in the petition. I also thank all honourable members and right honourable members for their contributions this afternoon on establishing a public register for animal abusers and the automatic ownership bans. Chair, this petition has attracted significant public support with more than 225,000 signatures, and that clearly demonstrates how strongly people across the country feel about protecting animals, and I commend the tireless campaigning of Bee and her supporters. As a dog lover and owner of Albert Atlee, an 11-year-old Labradoodle who brings real joy to me and my family, I share the petitioners' deep concern about animal cruelty, and rightly so. People want to see animals treated with care and respect. We are a nation of animal lovers, and I represent a party with a proud track record of delivering meaningful protections for animals, from introducing the landmark Hunting Act to strengthening safeguards for domestic animals through the Animal Welfare Act. Labour has consistently led the way in placing animal welfare at the heart of the government agenda, because we believe that how we treat animals reflects the kind of society we are. Yet we must also confront the harsh reality that animal abuse still occurs often in deeply distressing ways that shock the conscious and undermine those values that we hold dear as a nation. Causes of neglect, cruelty, deliberate harm continue to surface, reminding us that the protections we have in place, while important, are not always enough to prevent suffering or deter repeat offending. It is this reality that drives the strength of feeling behind the petition before us today. Now, where abuse does occur, we want animals to be protected, offenders to be held accountable, and to make sure further harm isn't caused in the future. The challenge is not whether to act, but how best to achieve lasting protection for animals. So, Chair, I'll first address the proposal for automatic lifetime bans on animal ownership. Under the Animal Welfare Act 2006, courts can impose disqualification orders preventing individuals from owning, keeping or caring for animals. In the most serious cases, these bans can be imposed for life. It is for the courts to determine the appropriate sanction based on the specific facts of each case. This judicial discretion is not a weakness in the legislation, it is a strength. And this discretion is what enables courts to impose the strongest possible restrictions where they are needed, where ensuring fairness and proportionality. Introducing an automatic lifetime ban in all cases would remove that discretion. Chair, I now turn to the proposal for a public register of animal abusers. I understand where there is public support for this idea and the reassurance it is intended to provide. However, there are already systems in place to both record and share this type of information when it is right to do so. Convictions under the Animal Welfare Act 2006 are recorded on the Police National Computer, and enforcement bodies such as the police and local authorities have access to that information. There are also established disclosure mechanisms that allow the police to share relevant information with those who need it. And that means relevant information can be used where it is needed for licensing, safeguarding, or public protection. A publicly accessible register, however, could create serious risks. These include the potential for harassment, for misuse of personal data as well. And the more effective approach is targeted disclosure, ensuring that relevant information is shared lawfully, proportionately, and with the appropriate bodies at the time. I also recognise the concerns raised by campaigns such as Holly's Law and Ruby's Law that members have raised today. They speak to a serious issue, the link between animal abuse, domestic abuse, and coercive control. The government takes that link very seriously. Statutory guidance under the Domestic Abuse Act 2021
already recognises that pets can be used to control, coerce, threaten or distress a victim. Chair, DEFRA is supporting a wider cross-government work in this area led by the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice, and I can assure members that I will continue that cross-government work. Our focus is on better awareness, appropriate information sharing, pet fostering, veterinary awareness and stronger microchipping safeguards. And that is why the right information must reach the right people at the right time through lawful and targeted safeguarding routes. I will give way.
And I'm grateful for his indulgence, given that I wasn't here for the opening. He's right, of course, about the sharing of information is critically important between all the agencies that both deal with domestic abuse and animal cruelty. But it may well be that the government need to weave this into their bigger piece of work, you'll be aware of it, on risk and dealing with risk in a rather different way, reinforcing some of the existing guidance, for example, and possibly even statute. We spoke about Holly's Law. That doesn't necessarily need to be a piece of primary legislation, but it does, I think, need to have statutory force, and maybe statutory guidance is the answer in this respect. I don't prejudge that. I simply put it on the record, the Minister to discuss with his compatriots in the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I know that he's a tireless champion on these issues, both meeting with, I think, the former safeguarding minister in the Home Office, writing to Baroness Hayman following his business question last year. And indeed, I can assure him that officials are continuing to work across government on the points that came out of the meeting that he had with the minister, and I will certainly take away the points that he's raised this afternoon. I will give way, yeah.
I very much appreciate the Minister giving way. And while we totally understand the need to have safeguards so that any disclosures aren't used as an excuse for harassment or inappropriate release of data, currently, given that sexually abusing an animal doesn't mean you're on the sex offenders register, or committing deliberate acts of violence against an animal doesn't automatically mean that that incident would be included in domestic violence disclosure. The way they are recorded currently, even if the police wanted to, that information is unlikely to even be stored in a way that they would be able to disclose it if they thought it was appropriate. So would the Minister be willing to meet or discuss about how we can ensure that these offences are at least recorded in a way that means they could be disclosed if it was deemed necessarily inappropriate?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention and the insight that he brings to today's debate as a vet. So I'm very happy to take his suggestions and views back to the department. He will know that animal welfare is not within my portfolio. It's the responsibility of Baroness Hayman, but certainly will take back his suggestions and concerns and explore that further. I'm going to make some progress on my speech, but I'm certainly happy to take away the action to share this with my ministerial colleague. Chair, we have heard in the opening of today's debate, more broadly, the government is committed to strengthening animal welfare protections and raising standards across the system. That is why in December of last year, we published our ambitious animal welfare strategy for England. And this strategy is not a short-term list of individual measures, but a long-term plan to improve welfare, prevent poor welfare earlier, and support a more joined-up approach. It includes practical action to promote sensible, responsible pet ownership, tackle puppy smuggling, end low welfare puppy farming, and explore further protections. And that matters because many welfare problems begin long before prosecution is brought, and they can start with poor breeding, poor socialisation, lack of knowledge, or owners being unable to meet an animal's needs. And by addressing those causes earlier, we can reduce the risk of animal suffering and reduce pressure on enforcement bodies later on. Of course, enforcement remains vital where poor welfare or cruelty does occur. Local authorities, the police and animal welfare organisations all play an important part in protecting animals and holding offenders to account. As we've heard in the debate this afternoon, the RSPCA alone secured over 1,000 prosecutions in 2024, which shows the scale of that continuing work. And that is why the government's approach is both practical and preventative. We want to stop animal suffering wherever we can, not only respond once harm has already happened. And that means helping owners understand their duties, supporting early advice, and making sure that people know where to turn before welfare problems escalate. Also means improving traceability through stronger microchipping and better records, so lost animals can be reunited with their owners, and irresponsible breeders or owners cannot avoid accountability. Chair, taken together, these measures provide a clear direction, preventing cruelty earlier, targeting enforcement where risk is greatest, and protecting animals through proportionate, workable, and lawful safeguards. In closing, I want to thank all honourable members and vital members for their thoughtful contributions in this debate and for speaking so passionately on behalf of their constituents and for those that signed the petition. I want to commend the work of the RSPCA and all organisations that support animal welfare issues across our country. The government is clear in its commitment to protect animals from cruelty, neglect and exploitation, and to ensure those responsible are held properly to account. Courts have the power to impose lifetime bans where appropriate, and it's right that they retain the discretion to do so. While we recognise the good intention behind calls for public register, the risks outweigh the benefits. Targeted disclosure remains the most effective approach. We are continuing to strengthen enforcement by supporting local authorities on how to utilise tools available to them more effectively. We will continue to deliver our animal welfare strategy, which will improve the lives of millions of animals across our country. And I look forward to continuing this work, working with colleagues and stakeholders to ensure the highest possible standards of animal welfare.
Collier to wind up.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. And I'd like to thank all honourable and right honourable members for their contributions, and I think it's great that we've had cross-party support on this, which I hope that B is happy about, because that doesn't always happen in this place. But I think it was, as the right honourable member for Newark said, because we are a nation of animal lovers. And I think the point made by my honourable friend for Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme, that question that he posed, are the current systems enough to stop a convicted animal abuser from just simply buying another animal? I think the answer to that question is no. And so when the minister talks about a disclosure scheme is how the government wants this to operate, I think we need to consider how that would actually work in practice, as my honourable friend has said. And in terms of the honourable friend for Camborne and Redruth, what he said about partners being able to buy pets, I think that is something, a loophole that the government should look at, which he didn't mention in the closing. And to my honourable friend for Cannock Chase, I'm always keen to hear from him, particularly when he makes very insightful points and people think that it's me making them. And what he said about trusted organisations having access to some kind of register, I think was very important, along the lines of my honourable friend for Winchester, and I pay tribute to the work that he's done as a vet in this space, and he speaks with great authority. And the point that he made about motivation of people's crimes and why they're doing this, deliberate suffering, and also trying to look at the warning signs, which can be of domestic abuse, which is also a theme that came out. So I would encourage the Minister, as he investigates this area more closely, that we work across government with both Home Office and also the Ministry of Justice on this issue. But I hope he has enjoyed the debate, and thank you very much for starting the petition and the 500,000 people that have been responsible for signing it too. So hopefully we've got some good action to take forward. Thank you.
Question is that this House has considered e-petition 759783 relating to a public register of animal abusers and automatic ownership bans. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, sitting suspended until 6 o'clock.
King Henry Milo, one night who rid me of this priest. 4 nights took the Hinton Road, turned words into a feast.
Talking to myself, deleting all the lies. Let the folks stand naked underneath these empty skies. Maybe no one's watching. Maybe that's okay. 'Cause chasing phantom crowds just keeps real ones away. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of pretending. The screen goes dark, but the quiet feels brand new. Maybe being small and real is the bravest thing to do. Yeah, I'm the only one who's there. But at least this time, it's honest.
Hair Starmer drew the line, said under 16 you're out. Lock the apps, kill the scroll, keep the kids safe and sound. Chasing predators with bands that's backwards, upside down. Punish the children instead of hunting the creeps around town. Don't ban the feed, don't close the shop for the thing. The creeps are punish. The children instead of hunting the creep. Creeps around town. Don't ban the feed. Don't close the shop for the thief. Kids need connection of this draconian grief. Social media's part of life, their voice, their joy, their scene, taking their voice, their joy. up like a surprise. Now they're talking face scans, biometrics in kids' eyes. Privacy crushed for the greater good, or so they claim. While the real danger lurks in the shadows, playing the same game. Don't ban the feed, don't close the shop for the thief. Kids need connection, not this draconian grief. From lonely teens, finding friends to creators, tracing dreams. This ban won't save them, it's tearing at the seams. It won't stop the bullies, won't kill the harmful trend. Just drives them underground, where the rules all bend. VPNs, fake accounts, forbidden fruit so sweet. At 16 they'll dive in blind, no skills on the street.
People ask me how I smile when the road gets rough and long, how I keep on carrying on when everything seems wrong. I don't claim to know it all, I don't have all the answers stored. Ground. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. My burdens aren't as heavy as before. I've got faith to see me through, and that's what faith was made to do. I've seen troubles come and go, I've walked valleys dark and deep, I've had nights without much rest, and days that made me weak. But every mountain looks much smaller when you're standing with the Lord. And every battle feels lighter still. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. Key that opens every door. When the storm clouds gather round, he lifts my feet from sinking ground. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. My burdens aren't as heavy as before. I've got faith to see me through, and that's what faith was made to do. No life ain't perfect, no life ain't free, but His grace keeps carrying me. What looks impossible to man looks different in His hands. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. He's the compass, He's the guiding cord. Big up Teresa, Donna too, Irish Flame, we're shouting for you. As before, I'm born through the sunshine and the storm. In His love, I'm safe and warm. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. Everything's easy for me, I praise the Lord. Babs in the house. Roll call time. If your name's on the list, you getting up, big up. Big up Danny West, kicking it right. Big up John Williams, shining so bright. Big up Castle Corbenic, holding the line. Big up Alex Jones, dropping his rhyme. Big up Helen James, making some noise. Big up Troops and the YouTube boys. Big up Wendy, AJ too. Big up Wavy, we're shouting for you. Big up Danny Jones, Eric and Taff. Luke and Bex got the whole chat laugh. Tom, Zero, Vettel and Ghost. Raise your glasses, here's a toast. Big up, one and all. Big up every name I call. From the live stream to the chat. Lady Bab says, how about that? Big up, don't be shy. Wave your hands up to the sky. One big family, one big crew. Big up me and big up you. Big up Teresa, Donna too. Irish Flame, we're shouting for you. DJ Darkside, Daz and X. Society X gets full respect. AA Yachty's in the mix tonight. Debler and Banksy doing alright. Mrs. Mitchell, Devon, Howard, Wallace, Hoogley standing proud. Big up Wallace and Sality too. Pauline Smith, we're bigging up you. Cole Holmes and Justin O. Passing by with another show. Big up, one and all. Big up every name I call. From the live stream to the chat. Lady Bab says, how about that? Big up, don't be shy. Wave your hands up to the sky. One big family, one big crew. Big up me and big up you. Fireworks flying overhead. Grateful Ant keeps marching ahead. BZ Kelly, Jane Keane, some of the finest you've ever seen. Anton King James in the place. Mel Garriel setting the pace. Band again and Tam as well. Shell UK ringing the bell. Emmy, Trilla, loud and proud. Based and boozy, working the crowd. Tommy, Robinson, Roy and Wendy, keeping the atmosphere nice and handy. Jojo, Mouse and Bops unite. Danny Roscoe in the spotlight. Urban Roots with the positive vibe. Pips, Mocha, loving the tribe. Every commenter, every friend. The big up list will never end. If you're watching this somewhere today, Lady Babe's got one thing to say. Big up this one, big up that one. Big up everybody under the sun. Comment section legends, live stream stars, no matter where you are. Big up, big up, big up.
Hello, Sussex Police. I'd like to report a crime. Matt Taylor is posting videos to YouTube, and they are disgusting!
Welcome everybody, gather around the screen. We got jokes and satire and everything between. A little bit of banter, a little bit of fun. If you're looking for outrage, you probably found one. No malice in the message, no venom in the rhyme. We're just taking life's absurdities and laughing for a time. Some folks love a giggle, some folks love a moan. But if every joke upsets you, maybe log off and go home. If you're offended, get over it, my friend. The world's not gonna stop and bend. This video's to last, that's all we're trying to do. A bit of satire on YouTube. If you're offended, like every old YouTube clip should be chained. But the clip's been public for years and years, floating around through laughter and tears. Funny how some people preach and advise, yet don't like seeing their own reflection arise. Cancel it, cancel it, that's what Tony cried. Cancel it, with panic in his eyes. If it's alright to mock somebody else, why not take a joke yourself? Cancel it, the rallying battle cry.
pretend. A memorable moment remembered again. Premiering briefly among clips of the past. A snapshot of YouTube that's built to last. Nothing is hidden, nothing is new. The internet remembers what people do. A minute of history, that's all it may be. Part of the online documentary. But suddenly now there's concern in the air when the spotlight swings over there. Kiss it, kiss it. That's what Tony says. Kiss it, kiss it. For days and days and days. If you're happy mocking everyone, why complain when you're the one? Kiss it. The chorus never fails.
It all, and she told the world she visits every fortnight, still watching for the fall. She's boring, she's got nothing to say, no reason for me to stay around. But somehow, every couple of weeks, she's back on familiar ground. If you're not interested, why keep turning up? Why keep checking in to see?
I have a sixth sense of humour, to be honest.
Why spend your time pressing buttons if she's nothing to you? You see,
She has nothing interesting to say.
I ignore her. She cries with a grin, then admits she likes getting under her skin. I ignore her. But the story's not clear, 'cause she keeps coming back year after year. She says she's bored, she says she's through, yet she's watching everything she can do. That's a funny kind of ignoring, don't you think? Standing at the shoreline while claiming you left the brink. I knew it would wind her up, she laughed. The more it does, the happier I'll be. The mask slipped off for a moment there, and everyone could plainly see. It's just a joke, I've got a sick sense of humor, don't take it all so hard.
I have a sixth sense of humour, to be honest.
But when the punchline is somebody else's distress, people tend to drop their guard.
Oh, fucking hell, she's just so
You can call it
triggered.
banter, call it fun, call it whatever you please.
I have a sixth sense of humour, to be honest.
But if the goal is getting a rise, the motive's not hard to read. She cries with a grin, then admits she likes getting under her skin. I ignore her. But the story's not clear, 'cause she keeps coming back year after year. She says she's bored, she says she's through, yet she's watching everything she can do. That's a funny kind of ignoring, don't you think? Standing at the shoreline while claiming you've left the brink. If someone means nothing, you walk away. You don't keep score. Day after day, you don't hunt for things that'll make them react, then laugh when they do. That's simply a fact. I ignore her. Rings out once again while she's busy looking for the next way to offend. I ignore her. But her own words reveal more interest than she probably liked to feel. She said she's bored, she says she's through, yet she's tied to the drama for all to see. That's a funny kind of ignoring, don't you think? A ship that left the harbor but never left the link. I ignore her. Echoes through the night while checking in to see if she's alright. I ignore her. That's the line she'll bring, but actions tell differently.
She says, I've been ignoring her lately. Yeah, yeah. I just literally go over there like about once a fortnight. I put in big up everybody that she, you know, she's got problems with, the ones that she's lying about, yeah, and then I'm gone because she bores me. She has nothing interesting to say. She has no educational skills anywhere, and she's a paedophile lover. So I don't really want to engage with it, to be honest. Yeah, as I was saying, you know, to be accusing me, she said apparently, I think Babs has had some sort of a mental breakdown. Are you for real? I mean, I did that I did what I did as a bit of a joke. I did. I have a sick sense of humor, to be honest. I knew it would wind her up. So the more things I know that wind her up, I'm happier to do. It's the same with the Israel thing. When I changed my avatars to the Israel things, because I know that she's not going to like it. Oh, fucking hell. She's just so triggered.
They say, Matt, why'd you go and do that? I say, sit yourself right down. You knew exactly what was coming, mate, yet you're acting like a clown. You click the link, you watch the show. You know the game by now. The next surprise when I stir the pot will tell me who's that now. I never claimed to be a saint, never wore a halo bright. If I see an opportunity for mischief, I just might. I've got a sick sense of humor, to be honest. That's the truth, I'm not gonna pretend. If I know it'll make you roll your eyes, I'll probably do it all again. I've got a sick sense of humor, to be honest. Sometimes I can't help myself. Life's too short to walk on eggshells, so I leave them on somebody else's shelf. Some folks take the internet far too seriously. Every joke's a declaration, every laugh's a conspiracy. They analyze my every word, looking for a crime, while I'm sat here drinking coffee, having the time of my life. You can call it childish, call it wrong, call it what you want to call it, friend. But if you're raging in the comments, you're helping me in the end. I've got a sick sense of humor, to be honest. That's the truth, I'm not gonna pretend. If I know it'll make you roll your eyes, I'll probably do it all again. I've got a sick sense of humor, to be honest. Sometimes I can't help myself. Life's too short to walk on eggshells, so I leave them on somebody else's shelf. I'm not here to save the world. I'm not here to win a prize. Sometimes I just enjoy the sight of disbelief in people's eyes. A wink, a grin, a cheeky line, a little bit of harmless fun. And if somebody loses sleep, I'm not the only one. I've got a sick sense of humor, to be honest, and I don't think that's gonna change. The older that I see
I sit here staring at the screen, reading words that cut so deep. You throw them out so carelessly, while other people try to grieve. Every comment, every jab, every little twist of the knife. You go home and sleep at night, while others carry it through life. And I won't lie, I felt the rage. I've played 1,000 scenes inside my brain. The things I'd say, the things I do, then I remind myself what's true. If I ever met you face to face, would I give my anger space? Would I let the fury lead the way? You walk away and keep my name. The thoughts come knocking at my door, but thoughts aren't actions, nothing more. So if I ever met you out one day, I'd leave with my dignity intact and walk. Class B no more, or so the papers cheer. Tax the ganja, regulate the atmosphere. Public's divided, but the polls are shifting green. Give us liberty or give us something in between. Medical's crawling, black market still king, but legal shops blooming could change everything. Yet behind the high times and the revenue stream, they're building the database, fulfilling the dream. One hand give it, the other take it away. Legal weed in your pocket, but they own your day. A green leaf for the people, a lock for the net. Trade your freedom online for a lawful cigarette. Oh, the ace in the pack, the bargain may sell. Smoke if you want, but we know you so well. One hand give it, the other take it away. Welcome to Britain in 2028. They say it's progress, modern and wise. Keep the kids off TikTok, read between the lines. But when every adult's verified, logged and tracked, the privacy's gone and there's no turning back. Cannabis calms the masses, takes the edge off the fight, while the surveillance state glows in the digital night. Is it liberation or just a clever con? A puff of freedom for the keys to Babylon. From California dreams to the streets of Hackney, the world's moving on, but Britain's playing catch me. Will Starmer's crew roll the joint or just the dice? Give with the right, control with the left, that's the price. Houses of Parliament, scales tipped askew. One side a split, the other a view. We the people decide if the deal's worth the cost, or demand both freedoms before all is lost. One hand give it, the other take it away. Legal weed in your pocket, but they own your day. Raise your voice, light it up, but watch what you say. In the land of the trade-off, every price has to pay. One hand give it, the other take it away. Give it, the other take it away. The cameras flash outside the gates, the papers scream and speculate. Every whisper grows new legs, every silence starts a thread. Friends go quiet overnight, enemies step into the light. Everybody wants the scoop, everybody wants the truth, but the walls are
Castle, Cabernic. Technically, the person and the company are treated in law as two entities. And if the director claims insanity, it will not impact getting a court judgment against their company.
I catch a dancing day on my eye.
How can activity only route really for her getting an internet ban is a stalking prevention order, but I'm not sure how they would endorse that.
I got so romantic.
That can be done via police or via a civil court injunction. Well, it's something you want to explore on top of this crazy thing, cause it all connects and she can't claim names and responsibility to get round that. Cause if she does, then that's more of a reason for her to get a stalking prevention order and an internet sanctuary open. Harry Potter. It's very simple. All the behavior you're dealing with, the stalking, harassment, and starting a fake company is all calculated and purposeful behavior, which isn't that of insane people who can claim diminished responsibility. Thus her trick of self-checking into mental health places to avoid responsibility and escape punishment is null and void. Tell the authorities about her tricks. It's all on record so they will see the pattern. Good point.
Así decidieron my vaina. I wouldn't work if you're not red catch 22. The one where if you say you're insane, you can't be insane because you know you're insane. And if they're insane, and to do the job, you have to be insane anyway. Same thing.
That would never stand up if anything that would ensure she could really get sectioned. Cause to do that you would have to need bin sections but pretend dying to be insane. In order to get sectioned and go through all that, then you are insane. And that is the thing right there, if she pretends to be insane to avoid court, then she is insane. And if she really is insane, there is no difference. Just to pretend you're insane, to do that you have to be insane. I can see by the plan to do what she did, and if she did that, knowing that, then she is truly insane. And that's the way I'd look at it anyway. She's insane to pretend to be insane in order to appear insane. And if she did that to pretend to be insane, then the idea behind pretending to be insane makes her insane. Because only someone who's insane would have thought of acting insane in order to avoid court by making herself look insane. And only someone insane would have dreamt of that scheme in the first place.
You're complicating it all. 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 And how should that happen? You're complicating it.